Life show. And I am in Bronzeville. I've been visiting my good friend Nyambi Jaha Eccles, who is the director of Project Butterfly. And we had a good show, and that'll be aired at a later time. And now I'm going to visit with my very good friend, we call him Baba Prince, Dr. Janet Price. We like to get together and just chat, and we don't ever know for certain where our conversations will take us. And so we call them candid conversations, meaning that we don't have much restraint. We talk about whatever we like to, and we express our opinions freely. I'd like to greet you, Papa Prince. How are you today?
I'm fine, and I'd like to greet you too, Guru Madri. And I'd like to thank you for having me again on your show. And I always meet people who've seen the shows and they really enjoyed these shows that you're presenting and the service that you are doing to the public at large. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. I get a lot of response whenever you are a guest on my show. People like to hear what you have to say because you have some fresh insights on a lot of things. Some things probably ruffle some feathers here and there because I don't think you have run-of-the-mill opinions about a number of things. We try very hard to be democratic, let's say, and not make criticisms of other people and the things that they do. But one of the things that I want you to talk about, since you are also the president of Vegetarian Health, I'd like you to talk about diet, because we've had a conversation about the problem of obesity and people trying to go on various and sundry diets, trying to lose weight when actually they may not be aware of all the factors that are involved in excessive weight gain and as it relates to diet. So can we talk a little bit about what you are really well versed in and a role model for?
Well, I don't know if I'm a good role model, and as far as being versed, Guru, you give me too much credit. But, and then again, some of the things that I say, and just to go back a little bit, these are not new ideas. These are the old ideas of time immemorial. Nothing I've ever said has not been said before at different times in history. And I'm just repeating what I've heard that come out of the mouth of such great men that I've had the privilege of being in the company of, and some that I've even read about, And so basically I'm just like a parrot. I'm just repeating what they've said. It's just that I might put my own spin to it. But these are the so-called truths immemorial that has come down through our history of man being on the planet. And so back to this vegetarianism and diet, because I am a vegetarian and I've been practicing vegetarian for quite some time. And people have asked me, say, well, how do you do it? I said, day by day, because I've had the opportunity to have the taste of meat in my life. There are some vegetarians that never get an opportunity to have the opportunity to eat meat. So therefore, they have no desire for it. And people think, for instance, that because I've been a vegetarian for over, 20 some odd years, that possibly that I had no desire for meat. Well, the desire never goes. It's what I say is that I'm abstaining. And for some 20 some odd years, I've been abstaining. Who knows, tomorrow I may go back. God's grace that He sustains me not to, but who knows? Day by day, it's that kind of struggle with anything that you're attempting to do. There is a problem, especially in the African American community. I'm saying especially, it's not that there's soul in our community, but especially of overweightness and obesity, and that has become problematic. I think it's one of the leading causes of heart disease, high blood pressure, and all of these chronic diseases that sends us to our early grave. And I would like to say that some of the problems that exist toward contributing to this great obesity in our community has to do with our diet and what goes into our diet, and it has a lot to do with tradition, cultural tradition and history, due to the fact that basically we eat a high-fat diet because most of your African Americans who have migrated to the north or to Chicago and a lot of other different places come from a rural background. And being that they come from a rural background, they were accustomed to eating foods that were high in fat content. And being high in fat content, and especially animal fat, that's where we get a lot of concentration in cholesterol. Not necessarily the good cholesterol, but the bad cholesterol. And you know what cholesterol does is contributes to the hardening of the arteries, the blockage of the blood vessels that lead to heart disease and many other diseases. And so what we have to do is that we're no longer living in a rural environment, but we're still eating like we're living in a rural environment. We are consuming more calories than we are using. And so anytime that you are consuming more calories that you're using, what happens is that it turns to fat. It's stored as fat. That's all it is. And so if we're not burning those fat calories, they'll be stored. And so we have to either become more active in our lives, or we have to be conscious of the foods that we are eating that are not so high in the fat content. You see, and all those other things that contribute to this obesity. And then another thing that is happening with the food is that a lot of the foods that we're eating are processed foods. And being that they're processed food, they may be tasty, but they may be low in nutrients. And due to that fact, we're constantly eating. We're constantly eating. And when you get to a certain point where it becomes customary and become habitual that we're eating all the time when we're not necessarily hungry, then that has a tendency for us to gain additional pounds that are stored as fat. And so we have to be very cognizant. We're not doing rural work anymore. We're not farmers. We're not laborers anymore. As a matter of fact, they say, well, a lot of people nowadays don't want to do labor. But we'll go to the health club and we'll pay that money and we'll do the exercises. And if you would have told me this many, many years ago, I couldn't have believed that people would go and pay to do labor. Usually people get paid for doing labor. But now we pay to do labor so that we can lose the weight and to continue to eat. But there's a lot of adjustments have to be going. We have to be very cognizant. And then there's the aspect of advertising. If we look at the TV, we look in the magazines, we hear on the radio, they constantly tell us eat, 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 eat. Eat, eat, eat. And in advertising, the whole aspect is that it's appealing to certain parts of our subconscious mind. Even when we're not even hungry, the first thing we do is get something to eat. You see, so we have to be very cognizant of our environment. What are they doing? How are they using advertising to make me do something that I necessarily is not good for me? You see, and so we have to be cognizant of what we're eating, what goes into the food we're eating, how many calories are we taking in, how many calories are we burning. But it takes our own personal attention to this. We have to give our own personal attention to this, you know, because there are people who are making money off of us being overweight, you see. Not only the food companies are making money of us being overweight, but also the medical profession. The medical profession makes a lot of money off of people who are having bypass surgeries, you see. The pharmaceutical industry is making a lot of money off of people who having these chronic diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., etc., etc. So it's a vicious cycle that has been set up at our disadvantage. And so we have to take that responsibility on ourselves and be cognizant of what we're eating and what goes into the food that we are eating. Should we cut back on the food that we're eating? We have to do it. Nobody else can make us do it. We have to take that responsibility.
And we have to read labels, because there's a lot of information on the labels of processed food to tell you that things that you would never expect to contain sugar, for example, and maybe many forms of sweeteners. It might have sugar and corn syrup and something else. Many things, many processed foods have labels that clearly tell you that there are things in it that you'd be better off without. A lot of food dyes, a lot of food preservatives, a lot of sugar or excess sodium, things that, you know, lead eventually to some sort of health problem that, as you pointed out, the medical profession stands ready to treat. I think probably the American diet is a most hazardous diet.
Yes, it is.
Because the things that are advertised in their combinations are just so devastating to the human body. But if you recognize that people are getting, not only dying prematurely, but they are getting debilitating diseases and illnesses, many of which are diet related, then perhaps you might decide, I want to live and I want to find out what I can do that might possibly extend my time on this planet so that I can enjoy my life, or I can be of some service or do something other than suffer with an illness and spend time in doctor's offices and hospitals trying to recover. So you may be said to be a recovering carnivore, meaning that you have to, well, there ought to be a Carnivores Anonymous, where they have meetings and, you know, they tell you that you get up and tell your story about your addiction to, some people are addicted to particular kinds of meat. They're not addicted to just one kind. They're addicted to particular kinds. So you could get up and tell your story about your addiction, and other people could tell you to keep coming back until you get yourself, till you talk yourself out of. But it is, as you pointed out, those of us who have had the background of having a diet that has flesh in it, certainly remember the taste, and I remember when, as a young woman, I was following in the footsteps of the older women. We used to, when we fried bacon, we used to save the bacon fat in a container. At first, you know, it was just something that you just used, but then after a while, you could actually buy a container that was decorative, that sat on the kitchen stove, and it said grease.
Right.
And you poured this grease in there, and you saved it, because when you were going to cook your beans, when you were going to cook your greens, you needed to have this grease to go in there.
Yes.
And so we actually like to have a hen that was fat, because it made rich broth for the dumplings. You know, we knew the reasons why we were seeking out and preserving this fat. We knew about the pound cakes, that they had a pound of butter and a pound of everything, a pound of eggs and a pound of sugar. Yes. And we bragged about who could make the best pound cake. Yes. So we've been through the era where we were eating like the masters on the plantation, rather than like the slaves on the plantation. The slaves got to eat the leavings. You know, we got to eat those parts of the animal that were not wanted in the big house. Yeah. And eventually, when we gained some relative affluence, if you can call it that, then we started to eat like the people for whom we were servants. We started to eat the rich foods and brag about all the kinds of meat we could cook for holiday.
Yes.
The ham, the turkey, the pork roast, all the different stuff. And I think I may have been an expert at cooking every single thing that now I avoid with a passion. But the thing is that it's not just the whole idea, it's not only the idea that we would be ill or are more likely to be ill if we don't take care with our diets. The other side of that is the suffering that we cause other sentient beings to endure because we have our addiction. And when you look at some documentaries and they show you the abuse that animals are subjected to just so we can have a veal chop, just so we can have beef or pork or whatever it is, or chicken. The torture, we're talking about torturing people in prisons. We are torturing animals in the same way.
Oh my goodness, that is, we look for the time where there will be peace on earth, you see, but we fail to realize that all the destruction and suffering that we are causing on a daily basis, the millions and millions of animals that are destroyed or killed just to satisfy our desire. I remember when I first became a vegetarian, my mother thought I would die. She actually thought that I would die, you see, because people were not educated to the fact that, basically a human being is basically vegetarian. If you look like, they say, well, okay, he's omnivorous. Because we can do something doesn't mean that's who we are, But our basic construction is that of a vegetarian, you see. And that from the vegetable kingdom, you can get all your nutrients. You see, not second class, but you get it firsthand. You don't have to go through the cow, and where it's assimilated into the cow's cellular structure, and then you eat the flesh from the cow. You can get it directly. Eat what the cow is eating,
which is grass.
Yeah, the cow is eating plant food itself, and so there's tremendous amount of suffering that is going on, but we are not even aware of it. As a matter of fact, they make sure, and when I say they, I'm saying those people who have an interest in us to continue this process of killing animals to desire, to satisfy our palate. If you go to the abattoirs where they kill animals, they're just like an assembly line, just like making Ford Motor makes cars, or General Motors makes cars, or Toyota makes cars. They are on a plane of destruction. A plane of destruction. You have, when they first go in, you have a knife that cuts their head off, and one that splits them, and this and that. It's all mechanized. Most of it is mechanized, So it's a horrible thing to think of, but that is the nature of this planet that we live on at this time. And if you don't want to be aware of it, you won't be aware of it.
Whatever happened to you reap what you sow? What goes around comes around. Whatever happened to people having ultimately to be responsible for the things that they do?
Well, in society, there's a conditioning process that goes on. In other words, for certain societies to survive along the same lines in which they want to survive along, and not being able to give up something that which they feel that they like, you see, what happens is that there's a conditioning process that starts from day one. When the baby is first born, you give him the milk and everything, but when he gets to the point where he starts eating solid food, the first thing they throw in his mouth is a piece of meat. Whether it be chicken, whether it be fish, whether it be pork or whatever. And the baby usually throws it, he usually spits it out. And they keep on giving it to him, and he spits it out. And they keep giving it to him, and then he accepts. Because who is it coming from? It's coming from the parent, it's coming from the loving hands of the parent. You see? And so this conditioning process takes place, at the time that we were, at our infancy, and it continues on. So this same child grows up, and he continues the same process with his children, and so it's an ongoing process, and no one never asks the question of what is this? Is this necessary? Is it necessary for me to be a contributor and a participant in this ghoulish experience of destruction of life on the planet as we know? And they never ask that question. They're more interested in the social consequences of eating and being happy and being gay or whatever it is that they want to do. And because food has become a part of our whole cultural exchange, the first thing you say is, okay, let's go out for dinner. If you meet somebody, let's go for dinner. And the first thing they're going to order, and in most of your restaurants, they're not just going to have a vegetable meal. They're going to have all the more
the entrees will start with, they'll have categories. These categories this is a category for poultry. This is a category for steaks and chops.
Yes.
This is a category for fish.
Yes.
And they may have maybe a few things that they set aside for people who don't eat either of those things. And much of it is pasta. They give you a lot of some kind of pasta, and then they'll throw some vegetables in there and decide that now they have satisfied the appetite of people who don't eat flesh.
Yes, but we are in the minority in this country and in this society, but you go to other societies, for instance, if you go to India, they are in the majority. Vegetarianism is in the majority. And it was ironic that I was reading in the newspaper the other day that the vegetarians were discriminating against the meat eaters. In other words, people who have apartment buildings, the landlords, they could discriminate against a person who eat meat to be rented an apartment.
Really?
Yes.
Is that in India?
Yeah, it was in India. I thought it was fascinating that they would go so far as to discriminate against carnivorous people. But as time goes on, there are more and more people in this country becoming vegetarian, But what has happened is, too, industry has gotten a hold of it, and what they've done is that they have corrupted the term vegetarianism. You know what I'm saying? They've made it the issue, okay, I eat fish, I eat poultry, so therefore I'm a vegetarian. No. What you're doing, you're abstaining from red meat. That's what it is. You're abstaining from red meat. But the whole basis of vegetarianism is ahimsa. Ahimsa is not the taking of life, You're conscious and you're aware of not the taking of life. And one of the aspects is that if one wants to evolve and become not just a Homo sapien, but become a human being, and then one wants to become a spiritual, divine being, one has to be cognizant of their participation in this
destruction.
Yeah, this destruction that is taking place, because you become more conscious, you become more sensitive to what is going on in the world, and not just taking things as status quo. You see, and a lot of people who have contributed to the uplifting of humanity, if you would read their history, you would find out that firstly, they gave up the eating of flesh. They gave it up. But this is not taught in the schools. You can go all the way through, you get your PhD, and you won't even learn it unless you venture out on your own, and the information is there, unless you look into these little slots of the background of the people who have contributed so much to mankind, that they were vegetarians. You see? I mean, there are other individuals who may contribute to the destruction of mankind, like Hitler. They say he was a vegetarian. They like to put that out there, that he was a vegetarian. But there are so many people. And this is a very significant part of the development of their state of mind and their consciousness that we overlook.
And no one wants to have a family member who is ill. No one wants to have a family member who is debilitated. Everyone wants their family members to be healthy. We all dread the major diseases that cause people to have to be hospitalized, to be incapacitated, and so forth and so on. and sometimes it ends with not only they're being incapacitated, but they're not being able to care for themselves, and so then it places a burden on the family to be able to take care of this person who has had a stroke or who has suffered some kind of health challenge that has really incapacitated him or her to the extent that they become almost dysfunctional.
Yes.
And so we have an increasing, if we notice as we drive through the neighborhoods, we have an increasing number of nursing homes, and we have an increasing number of dialysis centers. We have if you look around you, we used to say that in our community, the African American community, there were a lot of taverns and a lot of churches. Now you see a lot of facilities for health problems. There are a lot of centers that are urgent care and all kinds of things that are in our communities because they need to be there.
Yes.
And when we go to the emergency room in hospitals, I used to say, where are the Chinese people? Mm-hmm. Because you could go sit in an emergency room and sometimes you'd be there for hours until the middle of the night. But you never saw Orientals, mm-hmm. you know? And a majority of the people, no matter what hospital you went to, where you lived, you would find a majority of the people would be African Americans, the same thing as when you go to traffic court. Mm-hmm. Seems like we're the only ones who break the laws, the traffic laws, and we must be the only ones who break laws that have to do with health, because we're the ones, we are the sickest, and we do far too much drugs in order to take care of this or that symptom, and the drugs seem to merely mask the symptoms. No one ever seems to get cured from taking prescription drugs.
Well, Guru Maji, you know, the whole industry is geared toward dealing with the symptoms is not the problem. It is a known fact, a medical fact, and the Surgeon General has put it out, that there's a direct link between heart disease and animal food, mm-hmm. and flesh, eating mm-hmm. meat. Mm-hmm. There's a direct link. Mm-hmm. There's no other link. Okay, what is as high as in cholesterol is coconut oil. You know what I'm saying? And we don't eat a lot of coconut oil, mm-hmm. Coconuts here, mm-hmm. you know, as far as getting cholesterol, and that's the bad cholesterol. It is the animal food. It is the hamburgers. It is the steaks. It is the pork. It is all of these. This is a direct link. It is nothing in between. This is a direct link. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you eat this, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, no in betweens. Mm-hmm. But the medical profession doesn't deal with that. They tell you, let's deal with the symptoms. Okay, mm-hmm. you're going to get heart disease. So let's get a bypass. Yeah, come to the hospital. We're going to do your angioplasty. We're going to do a bypass. We're going to cut you open, and we're going to work with you, and we're going to give you these pharmaceutical drugs that deal with lowering of the cholesterol, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But they never tell the people, stop. Mm-hmm. Don't eat this food. This food is killing you. Mm-hmm. They never say that. Why?
There must be some profit in it.
There must be some profit.
Must be some benefit.
There must be some benefit. There must be some collusion that is going on, you see. Because the economy is based upon, so we build an economy around our problems. Mm-hmm. You see, if there are a lot of people who are fat and overweight, the pharmaceutical industries make more money. Mm-hmm. The medical profession makes more money. You see, if there are people who
the clothing industry makes more money because as people continue to gain weight, they have to continue to buy clothes.
They have to buy, you see. And it's like anything. We build a business around the destruction of ourselves, mm-hmm. you see. Mm-hmm. Those people who have an interest in our destruction are making money, mm-hmm. you see. And so they are not going to tell us, no, don't do this, mm-hmm. because you're going to affect their pocketbook.
Well, is it just a matter of will? You know, if after reading or hearing information that tells you that something is adverse to your health or to your welfare, will that alone just have somebody say, okay, I know now that this is hazardous to my health and I'm going to cease and desist? Is it just a matter of will, or are there some, do you actually need the grace of the Most High to help you transcend the kinds of conditioning that you had before you ever got old enough to know what the conditioning was?
I mean, we need grace for everything that we do, but we have to make the effort. They say, for instance, if you want to know God's will, if you have a shovel in your hand, that means to dig, you see. And so if we've been given a great opportunity, and it's not like people are not telling us. You turn on the television, there are many different diets that they're all constantly diet, but they're saying diet in terms of selling their product.
Eat this, eat that,
yes.
Eat less,
But there has to be a whole educational system. There has to be a recognition that this is an epidemic problem in this country, in this society. Because if you would remember, some 15, 20 years ago, this wasn't, people weren't as big as they are now. All of a sudden, it just blew up. But now they get science in there. I was listening to the scientist this morning. He said, there's a mechanism in the brain, that tells you to continue to eat. And so, therefore, it's okay. Because some people are just going to do it anyway because they're going to continue to eat. No. You can't. The science is being corrupted too, because they come up with the facts to support these institutions, these financial institutions that are making money off us. And so we have to get to a point where we say, okay, if what has happened over the last 15 or 20 years is different from the preceding 20 years, what has happened? And if we look at it and we find out that there are more fast food restaurants. People don't cook anymore. First place they go is, I'm not going to name them, but they're called fast food restaurants. They go down there to eat breakfast, they eat lunch, and they eat dinner, you see. And what is a fast food restaurant going to do? They're looking to make a profit. They're looking to make a profit, and they're going to use not necessarily the most quality product. They're going to use a product that is basically manufactured. These animals that they are using to prepare the hamburgers and all of that, they are manufactured. I may use the term manufactured on farms that are factory farms, industrial factory farms. They are pumped up with certain antibodies. They are pumped up with certain hormones, and it is a known factor that a cow's body is 78% identical with that of a human being. When they broke the genome, when they were able to break the genome, they found out that the similarity of the human being and the cow is very small percentage points. And so whatever this cow is doing, or whatever chemicals or whatever hormones in this cow has been passed on to us. If they're having a problem with antibiotics, you see, they say some strains have become resistant because we are being pumped up with too many antibiotics that are being passed on to us through these animals. You see? And as far as the hormones, I was listening earlier, and in listening earlier, I think the lady here at this butterfly camp, Project Butterfly, was saying that the young girls are coming on their menses. Yeah, their menses, and they're being matured earlier, 8 years old, 7 years old. This is uncalled for. Why?
The hormones in the animal.
The hormones in the animal, you see. I mean, we're constantly telling our daughters and telling our sisters, you know what I mean, that, don't be thinking about sex at this early age, and we are pumping it into their heads. No, don't do this. But on the other instances, we're feeding them hormones for them, their bodies to mature. You feed the hormones to the body to mature, the body going to have its own desires. You see? On one end, you're saying, no, don't do it. And on the other end, you say, go ahead. Go ahead. You see? So we're sending these mixed signals, but we're not conscious of that mixed signal that we're sending subliminally by feeding them hormones. You see? What does hormones do? It prepares the body to mature to a level where it can have
produce its own kind.
Yeah, produce its own kind. You see? And so we're sending these mixed signals because we are ignorant. We are very ignorant of what we are doing. We have to become conscious of what we are doing. You see?
So awareness is the first step.
Yes.
You just must become aware, which is different from just looking on and observing without internalizing anything, you know, that you're hearing or seeing.
Yeah.
But it's actually a dawning, an epiphany of some sort, that just finally tells you that, you know, this is not in your best interest and allows you to make a different choice. Smoking, for example, sometimes when I think about it, I used to be a smoker, and when I think about how a door opened, that's how I describe it. A door opened for me to be able to stop smoking. When a door opens for you to be able to give up something that is detrimental to your interest, go through the door and close it. Don't look back, because the door will also shut in your face and you'll be right there where you were. So I think that it was grace that allowed me to be able to stop a habit that was it was unintelligent to be able to read the side of a pack of cigarettes, to know what cigarettes were capable of doing, and to do that in defiance of that knowledge. So I think that, you know, at some point I began to realize that this was something I needed to stop doing. And I was able to stop, and I'm glad that I was, because I don't know where I would be today.
Yes.
You know, I enjoy some vigor in my life, and I know that some people have less vigor in my age grade than I do, and they have some habits that I was able to give up, as I said, through grace. But the thing is that, you know, you see people, as you say, having a good time, a part of the culture. You know, people gather together on holidays and they're all around the grill, you know, and they're popping tops on cans of this and that and pouring glasses of this and that. And to let them tell it they are having a great time. They don't realize that it's possible to have a great time without death being in the midst of the company. That there is nothing that people who eat meat can have that vegetarians don't have the equivalent of. We have every flavor, every texture, every aroma. There is absolutely nothing that we do not enjoy the taste of, because there is a vegetable base for everything. And George Washington Carver, who they like to say discovered how to do stuff with peanuts, he was much more than a person who made peanut inventions. He was a chemist, and not only that, my godfather, Theodore Valentine, was one of his aides. And my godfather told me that George Washington Carver talked to plants, and that he said plants talked to him and told him their properties and told him what to do. It is George Washington Carver who laid the whole basis for the vegetarian industry, because he discovered what to do with plants, every conceivable thing. He made fuel from plants, made textiles from plants, made paints from plants, made canvases and paint brushes and painted on the canvases, made rubber substitutes during the war. he was able to make substitutes for all those things that were rationed because he had such a profound knowledge of the plant kingdom. He laid the basis for this, and we want to be African American and black and proud, and we don't take advantage of our heritage, because in our heritage is one of the greatest scientists that ever lived, and he gave us the alternatives to everything that we might desire that might be harmful or in short supply.
Yes, yes. That is a fact. You know, the whole textured vegetable protein market derived from soybean. He was one of the first to do the research to exploit the soybean to that extent, that you could get textured vegetable protein from it. And there is so much at hand that we can do, but if we won't do it, it makes no sense. I mean, it makes no difference, you know. People have to be re-educated. They have to be re-educated, but industry...
Who's going to do the job of re-educating the public? You don't hear it in places where people gather.
Well, Guru Maji, you're doing it now. You're having people on your show who will talk about it. Your show is going out to, you know, millions of people out there in the audience, and somebody's going to hear this message. All it takes is one, you see. And those people who hear, a lot of people are not going to take heed to it because they've been so conditioned. So conditioned. I mean, the circuitry in the brain has been, what they say, hot-wired, you know, and you know, they're not going to change. It's very difficult. Change is very difficult.
Yes.
You know, we fight wars because...
Voluntary change is very difficult, but everything changes.
Yes, but we fight wars because we don't want to change. What conservatives say is we like it the way it is and we like the old way, you see. And we're not going to change for nobody. I'll kill you first before I change. You change, but not me, you see. And so we're not going to get everybody, but there are people out there who are interested. Those who are interested, and if they hear these words that you have said and these utterances that are coming from my side of the sofa, maybe they'll become more aware, and maybe they'll do some research, their own research. Don't depend on the educational system to give it to you like that.
Well, if you're too far gone, maybe you can do something to help the children, you know. So, all right, I'm addicted, I can't give it up, but the children aren't addicted yet. The youngsters are not yet addicted. We, as you pointed out so aptly, that the adults who are the custodians of the children are the very same people who corrupt them. Because for the first birthday, you're going to have cake and ice cream. You're going to give them sugar-laden foods. And you're going to give them soda, carbonated beverages. You're going to give them hot dogs. You know, you can give them salty things like potato chips and what have you. This is the party. And the children learn that in order to have fun, these things must be present, or else you are not having fun. And so we get them started in the wrong direction, not because we don't love our children, but as you pointed out, because of the ignorance.
It's the ignorance.
That we simply don't know, you know, Father, forgive us, we know not what we do. But once we can know what we are doing, we could at least spare the children. We don't have to put the children in peril because we have habits that we can't break.
Yeah, but we have to be able to process this information. And the way that we are today is that I like what the young lady was saying earlier, how she takes the girls out of this environment and takes them to another type of environment where it doesn't have the telephone, doesn't have the cell phone, doesn't have the electronic device, the iPods and the Walkmans and the TV, and where they can get back to, you know, find out who they are as an individual, as a person, as a human being, you know, one with nature, one with each other, you know. And that's very interesting. That's very interesting because we very rarely get an opportunity to disengage ourselves from society, you know, to disengage from this panorama, you see. And so if we're not disengaging, we are participating.
Right.
And not only do we participate, we become part of the problem. We start to have input. You see, I look at the TV shows on the cooking. They got a number of cooking shows on there. They're showing you how to take this animal flesh and flip it and fluff it and season it and smoke it and all kind of ways, you know. And you
put nuts and cherries and
yes,
whipped cream on it.
I mean, if you look at it, it's so, oh my goodness, you start saying, am I missing something? Even being a vegetarian, so I must be missing something, you know, because they make it so tantalizing. And anytime we become addicted to something, and that's what we are. We are addicted to meat. We are addicted. But it's not polite. It's not politically correct because everybody's doing it. They say everybody's doing it. So how can we say we are addicts? Addicts are people who are addicted to drugs or who are addicted to alcohol. You can drink with moderation, they said. Well, every addict started out drinking with moderation. Every addict started out with moderation using drugs. Every addict, a person who's addicted to me, started out with moderation because that's when their parents fed it to them the first time. And we don't know that we are addicted. We don't even know. We're in a state of total denial because the whole society denies it. From the president all the way down. Nobody. I mean, so how can this be wrong? And not only in this country, but throughout the world. How can it be wrong? If everybody's doing it, it must be right.
Well, that's the norm. The way you can decide whether or not someone is insane is to compare them with other people in the society. If most people, a majority of people in a society have certain behaviors, then that is normal.
Yes.
No matter what how bizarre the behavior is, it is, from your standpoint, it is normal if a majority of the people in society have that same behavior. So if you don't have that behavior, then you're the aberrant.
Right.
You're the one who is out of harmony with the rest of the community. So it's the same thing with, you know, you see so much advertising of alcoholic beverages, you know. And if you're not consuming alcohol, I think sometimes men think that their manhood is in some way integrated into having a can of something or a bottle of something in their hand. This you know, this kind of, you know, you cook on the grill, you know, and you got a beer, you know, and this is sort of part of what I think men may even think is part of their masculinity.
Well, what has happened, Guru Maharaj, is with women or with females nowadays, it has been a tremendous increase in alcoholism among females.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. And it has been threefold increase. Women are drinking equivalent almost to what men are drinking now. You see, at one time in society, it was impolite for women to drink hard liquor.
And especially in public.
Yes. Now they're doing what they call body shots. They do the body shots, you know.
What's a body shot?
Well, I think what it is the body shot is when they put the liquor on your chest or whatever it is on the chest, and then what they do is that they get their mouth, their lips, and they take it in without using their hands and take it up straight in the air, and to get a, you know.
Okay. All right.
To get, that's their reward, I presume. They call it body, but it, you know, it's just a customary thing that they're doing. But what it's doing is binge drinking.
Right. I've seen some reports about that on college campuses.
Yeah, they're stumbling down the street like drunkards.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? On the street. You know, no, it's acceptable.
No shame.
No, it's acceptable. It's acceptable, you know. So,
well, what is happening to the children while women are drinking, where the alcoholism among women is tripling? What must we imagine is happening to the children if parents are consuming alcohol to that extent, then obviously some children must be raising themselves.
Well, they are suffering from the diseases that alcohol bring about. You know, I mean, there are certain symptoms and diseases that alcohol bring about, especially if a woman is pregnant and she's giving a child. You know, she's drinking alcohol. We know what happens to the child. You know, and there's development in terms of the brain, the nervous system, and all of that. But what we say, Grandma? This is the state of affairs today.
Well, we are certainly seeing it in the generation of children. We're seeing all kinds of disorders that children have. You know, they have some disorders that are trumped up. They're not as they're exaggerated. They're really not as extreme as it is made to appear. But then there are some children who have a great deal of difficulty controlling themselves, you know, paying attention, sitting still, listening, you know. They are irritated, you know. They seem to be just irritated from perhaps their physiology,
yes,
you know, being affected by a number of things. And not only including diet, but also including the environment that in which they're living in not only in the home but in the neighborhoods. You know,
well,
there may be some influences that are contributing to children just being, you know, having. Well, I don't say they have to be drugged because I object to drugging children. But there are a number of children who are being drugged because they are trying to quiet them.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, these are a lot of the problems that we're seeing develop while the child was in the womb. You know, this is the prepared stage of human development. It's in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've been abused in the womb,
right,
you know, I mean, and your neural systems are not developing properly, then what is the outcome of that, you know? Right. I mean, we're not aware of the damage that we do to each other, you know, and right, to ourselves. And
so I guess we shouldn't worry about animals if we're not paying much attention to what we're doing to our own offspring. Then we certainly are not worried about the offspring of cows or chickens or pigs.
Yes, this is the state of affairs in the world. And this is something that has been going on for quite some time, where an individual has to do their own work. They have to do their own research because what? It is in our best interest. We have to look at what is in our best interest for ourselves. We can't go by what your neighbors are saying. We can't go by what society says. We have to research this for ourselves, whether it be in the kind of food that we're eating, the kind of books that we're reading, the kind of education that we're getting,
kind of TV that we're watching,
the kind of TV that we're watching,
the music.
Yes, we have to be conscious of it. You know, one thing I like we talk about they say about rap music, you know, and well, you know the lyrics in rap music, what they are, you know, and hard rock and all this, and we see a lot of the crime in the so-called black community, you know, and I think this rapper Ice-T at one time, you know, he came out with a song called "Cop Killer," you know, and all the police were upset because he was advocating shooting police, and they asked Ice-T, said, "Ice-T, why don't you think that you're contributing to killing policemen?" He said, "How am I contributing? They were killing policemen before I wrote this song." He said, "Only thing that I am doing is I'm giving them an anthem." You know, so an anthem is this guy, if he's going to shoot a police or if he's going to shoot somebody, he's got a song to do it by.
He's got the background music.
Yes.
Okay.
You see?
So we that's more properly called a dirge, you know, the kind of music that is played in the background of death and dying. You
Yes,
know, we ought to
yes,
have
yes.
more organ playing in the black community than rap music, because we're doing a lot of suffering. But I'm hopeful that, you know, just continuing to visit this subject of how we might improve the quality of our health, and in doing that, improve the quality of the health in our community, because it really starts with ourselves. If we can improve the quality of our own health, then certainly we would be able to be a positive influence and maybe a role model for others, and consequently, you know, it could continue so that eventually we would have a better quality of health among our people, and have less debilitating issues to prevent us from rising to the level of, as you say, becoming a human being. Because I think most people take it for granted that you're born a human being. No, a bird is born with wings, but it has to learn to fly.
Yes.
You're not fully matured, and so there are things that human beings do and do not do, and one of the indications of whether or not you can have reached that stage is your regard for the life of other human beings and other sentient beings.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm happy that first of all, I'm happy that I know you, and then I'm happy that you have the line of work that you do, that you recognize the need to help people to find a way to live a healthy lifestyle, and that you practice what you preach, because a lot of people do a lot of things or promote a lot of things that they don't necessarily do themselves. So I'm happy to know that you are, as I said, that you are a practitioner of what you preach, and I suppose that everyone in their own time will make their own decisions.
Yes, yes, yes. And I'm just another voice, a voice in the wilderness is shouting out. And this is nothing new. You know, whatever I'm saying, anything I've said, I may have put it in a different phraseology. But this is what all the great saints and mystics and people who were concerned with humanity and with individuals' ability to become more of who they are, gain more self-awareness about themselves. This is all they've said throughout time. There are first things you have to do first. You have to eat a certain diet.
Well, thank you, Baba Prince, Dr. John F. Price, for joining me, and I look forward to having you return for another visit.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Gloria Latimore-Peace, host and producer of OmniU Presents, the H3O Art of Life show. I'm always happy to greet you wherever I see you, and I see you everywhere. I even see viewers in other states, and I'm always surprised when I run into you in shops and on highways and at events and what have you. I'm always glad to be greeted and to learn that you are viewing the show and that you enjoy the show. So hopefully you will continue, and you will invite your friends and family to come and join us on Fridays at 8:30 on Channel 19. And the show repeats